Do you want more? More time, more balance, more love, more sex, more money, more real, and less bullshit? This is the Women Wanting More podcast with Dr. Karen Osborne. Real life, real stories, plus real tips to get you more of what you want.
So I've spoken into this before, sister, about, really like knowing and understanding who you are. But I want to speak to this again because I think it's incredibly important. Hold on. Park assist. Not park assist, but park as in don't hit the thing next to you. Park assist. Okay. So let's jam here. So I'm just coming out of my swimming lesson with my new swim teacher, Naya. She's awesome. She said to me, I think we're really, really good fit. And I'm like, I think we are too. Like, just great. It's my second lesson with her. And what I found has been really, really helpful as she's teaching and coaching me, giving me feedback is, and it was funny because like the first lesson we had last week, I got the time mixed up. And so, they have lessons booked, right? So it's kind of like show up late, like it's whatever time is left. So I showed up at 9:30, thinking it was 9:30, it was actually 9:15. But I didn't know until we were done the lesson, and it's like 9:46. She's like, I gotta end. I'm like, isn't it half an hour? She's like, yeah, but it was 9:15. I'm like, oh my God, I got the time mixed up. I'm so sorry. So first lesson felt a little bit of a train wreck because it was so fast. But yeah, today was really good. She had things kind of scheduled out. Here's what we're gonna do. We're gonna really work you hard today. And she got to know me a little bit at that first lesson. But what I had said to her was because of how I'm aware, right? So back to like knowing who you are, right? Knowing how you learn, knowing how your body works best, knowing how you think, like all stuff that takes time, right? Like all stuff that takes time to kind of understand. And I think, like, quite honestly, life experience, and I maybe just having that awareness, because I can tell you right now, I see a lot of similarities with my son, Tyson, as to how like I learn. And so for Tyson and I, we both learn really well by doing, okay? By doing. We both have a lot of energy. We both are very like kinesthetic, right? So again, by doing is how I learn very well. This is why a lot of my stuff, even in business, has been like, people are like, well, how do you create that thing? And how do you do this funnel? And how do you do the podcast? And I'm like, listen, I don't give a rat's ass. Let me just do it and then ship. Like, as Seth Godin, one of the coolest marketers of all time, Seth Godin said, like, just ship it. Like, just put it out there. I learn best by doing and then figuring out what doesn't work, or, okay, well, I made a mistake with that thing. Here's where I can correct, versus having to know all the things and then to do it. It's kind of like, think of like driving a car. Like, Jesus, we didn't go like, okay, so then I do this and then I have to watch for this. And you learned some basic things and then you had to ship it, as in you had to start driving the damn car, right? So as I'm working with Naya today, and as we're going through things, and she would kind of give one thing, and I would go, okay, cool. And then she was almost a little kind of surprised, and like really, she was like, oh my God, that was awesome, of how well I could take one cue and incorporate it into my body. Now, I've also been physically training my body since the age of 15, and I'm now 49. So that's a long ass time, and have a lot of awareness of things. I would say particularly in the last, probably 10 years. And that just also comes to just knowing who I am, right? But understanding that I do really well when being coached, whether it's boxing, when I used to CrossFit, lift, swim, like anything else, like stand-up paddleboard, did one lesson, learned how to do that really well, because there's not really much else you do after one lesson. It's not that difficult. And then I get one little input, one piece of feedback, one kind of like correction, and then I can put it in. And it was also really valuable for her, right? And so now this kind of like, coaching, teaching relationship felt very synergistic, right? Felt very synergistic. It's like, okay, we're like working together, versus like, someone teaches you and then you just do that thing, right? Or they go, no, what I meant was this. Because what she had said to me, she's like, oh, that's really helpful for me to know you can do like one thing and then put it in. I said, yeah, there could be 10 things that you need to tell me, but just pick one. And that's how my body learns best, and that's how I do best. And I also shared with her, I said, if we spend too much time talking in between, or when last time you asked me questions about, well, why do you think this, why do you think that? It's like, I then go out of my body and into my head. And then it's hard for me to go back into my body because now I'm thinking too much. Now, you could be completely different, right? But I have a very keen understanding of how I learn best as I'm writing this book right now, right? I found myself getting up in my head, well, I don't know what's the book title going to be, and what's this really all about, and how is this going to all flow together? And I got in my head about shit. And it stalled me, and it stopped me for a while. Until my friend Jill had just said, listen, Karen, she's written a book, and she's like, listen, just write. Just write. Don't worry about the coming together. It'll all come together. Just write. And then write until you feel like you have nothing else to write. Hold on one second. If you've been listening to the podcast for a while, here we go. You will know that I do a lot of stuff as I'm driving in the car recording podcast. I'm walking around outside. And this is where I'm able to fit stuff in the bits and pieces. But as my friend Jill said to me, she's just like, look at, like, just write until you feel like you can't, like you're done. And then you start putting stuff together. And I was like, oh, something just clicked. When she said that to me, I'm like, got it. And then here I am back in this flow again, right? So kind of just like with Jill, I needed that, or just like with swimming, and my swim teacher, Naya, Jill just kind of said one little thing to me. I'm like, you're right. Just write. Just write, Karen. What the hell? What's the holdback? Like, just write. And then you'll figure out the next thing, right? Which will be one of the other steps which will come together along the way of writing this book. And so it is invaluable for you to know who you are and how you learn in a plethora of ways, right? How you communicate best, how you feel loved. Go read the 5 love languages, by the way, if you have not, to know how you feel loved, because everyone's different. Right? And that's going to help you in your relationship. It's going to help you identify how your children best feel loved. Knowing who you are helps you know how you learn. Think of if you're working, in a business on a project with somebody, you'll be able to communicate just like I did with Naya today, of like, here's how this really works best. And you can create that real synergy, that real partnership, that real collaboration together, right? Think of like when you parent, and just knowing how you function best, right? So for me, being very active, very energetic, I have to move on a regular basis. Seeing my husband yesterday, because I work from home. He has office space. Sometimes he'll be here occasionally, but mostly in his office space. And I just really like being at home. I like to be able to get out and move, because it's like, well, we get space for you. I'm like, I don't want that. I don't want it. I need to be able to so after I've, gotten up in the morning, I've taken care of me. So I need to have stillness time. I need to have outside walking, in the dark if it needs to be, with my dogs. I need to be by water. It fuels me. My day yesterday was spent recording some podcasts, publishing the podcast, putting show notes in, sending out some newsletters, getting things kind of queued up. Then kind of feeling a little bit antsy, grabbing some food, and then going outside, walk my dogs for 25 minutes, right? Getting out in sunshine. It was a beautiful day yesterday, like it is again today, along the beach. I see the water. I'm walking my dogs get exercise. They're all calmed down. I come back, I get something to drink, and I'm ready to work again, right? I know how I work best. I cannot sit at a desk for 3, 4, 5 hours. I don't care if it's every hour you get up for 2 minutes. No, I need to have a bigger chunk of let me get out, and then I come back and I'm good. I can now just flow and work. And it took me a while to really understand that. And I felt guilty. So I'm like, well, I should be, I got this chunk of time and I shouldn't break it up. And I got to have I'm going to put in 2 hours of blah, blah. But it's I'd be wasting so much time because I'm just not focused. I'm not as efficient. I'm trying to push to get something done versus understanding who I am and how I operate best. Which is, let me have a little bit of a mental break. Let me have a little bit of a physical break. Let me move my body. Let me get out into fresh air and sunshine and energize myself and fill up that tank of who I am. And then let me get back and jam for an hour. Or I could have kept pushing through in a 2-hour time period, probably got just as much done in 2 hours as if I could have in an hour, but really focused good time. Or it could have been 2 hours where I still don't really get much stuff done. I'm frustrated, I'm tired, So do you get it? Do you understand how valuable it is to understand who you are? It is everything. And of course that comes along with knowing who you are will help you understand what you want. And listen, sister, it really is not even knowing who you are. It's remembering who you are. Listen, at the core of me, whether you've been listening to this podcast, this is your first one. If you are, welcome. I thank you for listening. Or you've been listening from the beginning. And if you listen from the beginning, you're like, man, Karen's really different now. Yeah, I am. And that was who I was then. But really, I've gone through this process over the last 4 months or so. Started around January, to be honest. So about 9 months ago, of just like, you know what? Things are not working as I am right now. And let me just explore this more. And then had a breaking wide open moment, what I also refer to as the nervous breakdown / the spiritual awakening. Thank you, Brene Brown, for that one. And it's like, okay, let me really start to go deep on this. And when I remember who I am, it is not someone who's angry all the time. Sure, I have lots of energy. Yes, I can be intense, but I can just be just as intense, not in anger, but in love. Listen, as a young girl growing up, my mom still reminds me of this sometimes, right? Of how much I love children and babies. And it was at the time when Ann Geddes, who's a very famous photographer, she's the one that would put the kids in the flower pots and all sorts of kind of funky, cool, crazy things. And I had those like all up over my wall. It's like a teenage girl. I had other things too. But I remember that. I was like, man, I love babies. I love children. I started babysitting at the age of 8. Probably not the best thing, but it was the 70s and it was friends' kids and whatever. There was no babysitting courses. Nobody cared. It's like, can you watch the kids? We're going to go out and have dinner. I'm like, yeah, sure. No idea how to do CPR or anything like that. But, everybody survived. We're good. But at the essence of who I am is love. And I know that as this message, this woman wanting more, is evolving and changing and shifting, as I'm evolving and changing and shifting, and remembering who I am, that the message is about love. And that's knowing that when I go to the place of anger, although it can have a place, it can have a purpose, it doesn't mean always be happy, always be in love. No, there's times when you need to get pissed off, and that's okay. That is real. But where I'm most powerful is in a state of love. Where I create most momentum in my life, marriage, kids, business, health, is when I'm in a state of love. When I'm present in the moment. I think one of the things that, one of the things that attracts me to kids and babies so much is they're just so present, right? They're so present. Now, my oldest boy, who's 7.5, almost 8, he definitely goes through things of like, well, I wish I didn't do that, or like, remember this, mommy, and that, a little bit of those pieces are starting to appear in him. So we're starting to lose that a little bit, but it's, very, very minor, and we'll be playing and stuff, and he's just like in it. God, they're just such the most beautiful teachers. And as difficult as it is to parent, there's also the other side of that one, which is I'm just so grateful I get to be their mom. I'm so grateful I get to teach some things about life. I'm so grateful I have the opportunity to be able to spend the time that I do with them and to be present and to hopefully let them bypass some of the challenges that I went through growing up and figuring out me and remembering who I am. And I can start them on the path of that from the get. Like, what a beautiful gift that is. For me to be able to do that, but, for them to be able to kind of like, I almost want to say have a head start, but to start off life on that point. Like, beautiful, right? And it all comes down to knowing who I am. What should we call this episode? Know Thyself, sister. I think I actually it's so funny. I did a couple episodes where I looked back, because when I do the show notes, by the way, if you don't receive the show notes, I was actually going to tell you this already at the end of the episode, but I'm going to tell you right now. Head over right now, if you're not receiving the Women Wanting More newsletter, to drkarenosborne.com/action guide and get hooked up. So you're just going to enter in your email, drkarenosborne.com/action guide. And I'm going to send you some cool video trainings. Be part of the Women Wanting More tribe. Get all the first up about my book coming out in the next month or two. But I also have show notes. So every single episode, you're going to get a link to it. I'm going to send you then the link to the website, give you a little bit of synopsis about it. You can click on it and see all the show notes and links. And so I'll have past episodes that are relevant. So when I do the episode and publishing it, and I've had someone else that's done this for me in the past, I would go and take a look, okay, what relevant, because this is 570 something. Like, there's a lot of content, a lot of podcast episodes that are out there. So And sometimes when I'm bringing up the title or something that's in it, because I can search on my site to look on the past podcast episodes, I'm like, oh my God, I've done an episode where I've called it the exact same thing. I actually did that 3 times with one of them. It's like, so I think Know Thyself I've taken, but we'll figure it out. But listen, you need to really know who you are. So here's your more tip for today. I want you to open up your journal. We've done something like this before, but this is valuable. Open up your journal and right at the top and write I am. And start writing, sister. It's crazy, right? We spend all this time researching, like, what are the best schools for our kids and what's the safest car seat and where's a good place to go on holidays. But we somehow think it's wrong, not important, or like selfish to invest this time to really research us, to understand us. The most valuable asset on earth is you for yourself. Because if you really understand and remember who you are, again, do you get it? This makes you better in your marriage. This makes you better as a parent. This makes you better in your business. This makes you happier and more joyful in life. So, more tip. You got it there, sister. So, I'll talk to you next episode, A Life of More. It's one step away, really, from remembering who you are, sister, every single day. I love and appreciate you.
To get the show notes of each Women Wanting More episode, including the How to Get More tip, subscribe to the newsletter at drkarenosburn.com/newsletter.